Hey guys, Cassie here, and today I am so excited. So extremely excited. The day has finally come. The day is here, my friends. The day is here, my friends, that I am going live publicly showing you how to comp with my very first love, Propstream. So, all of that to say, for those of you who are new to myself, I have, or maybe even new to RJ, if you didn't watch any of the 50-50-50s, any of that stuff, you may not know that I have been such an advocate for this tool for many, many, many moons. It's my first love. I am very, very, very grateful for this tool in our arsenal. I have been such an advocate for it, and I love getting to highlight features that I love about this product. It has been incredible. Now, RJ and Burton went live showing you some of the data power with this tool. I guess it was last month, about a month ago in our group. And it is such a powerful tool in many regards. I'm going to stick to comping today on Propstream. It is my personal favorite for many, many years. But then again, we had it to where we didn't have other options and other tools. And I always just kind of felt like nationwide for a very long time, it was my go-to. It was the one that I knew I could count on, right? Now, that being said, through the years, with comp tools, it's been an ever-changing thing. We used to, at one point, prior to being really heavy on, Propstream, when we were just local, we loved Propelio, right? We stopped using Propelio at one point because we were nationwide, and they kind of took a little bit of a break from the nationwide situation. And Propstream has just pretty much been our constant. Now, there's other comping tools out there that have been put out since. And to be honest with you, there's kind of always been like an ebb and a flow on certain aspects of it. Last week I went live regarding Privy. I talked about like some of the benefits to Privy, and I talk about this all the time. We have Batch, they have a comp tool, and through the years, we're steady testing comp tools. Like I'm constantly split testing this because it's such a vital tool for you to have, and a lot of people undermine comping and underwriting in this process to begin with, much less how affordable it is for you to be able to have a tool that gives you information that you vitally need. So today I'm just going to go through some of my favorite highlights and features of the comp tool in Propstream and what I love about it, what for me makes it, really a go-to product for us, one we'll never not have in and of itself, much less, the other things that Propstream does. So feel free to, right now, honestly, I am supposed to have Burton on, but I haven't heard back from him. I've got my team in the background while I show you guys this live. Something may have come up, or there might have been a problem, or there might be some kind of connectivity problem. I'm not sure yet. So hopefully we can get him on and we can go through the product together, because I think it's always really incredible for you guys to be able to see this from more than one perspective. It's really important to us as we showcase the tools and services and products that we utilize to do what we do for you guys, that you get multiple perspectives. And we always think that it's great to be getting updates on things coming up, or just a deep dive on the information on where this comes from, how to utilize the tool, maybe in a way that I'm not going to show you. I've been utilizing this tool and navigating it the same way for so many years. And like I said, products develop and things change. And sometimes, they might roll out like a new version or an update or something like that. And they might have a bug for a minute, and somebody might hop on there and say, this one stinks, So for me, like, it's always really good to like stay up to date on that, those kinds of things. And again, I feel like that is such an underrated thing, and something we want to continue to add to our community. So with that being said, you guys feel free to go ahead, leave comments, leave questions. It's like Groundhog's Day. I am back. I normally don't do back-to-back days on here, do I? Propstream for the wins. I do. I love me some Propstream. RJ would never how to find buyers using this tool, and it was mind-blowing for us starting. I now use it to have a better idea of the area on the bottom. I'm going to be honest with you. Like, it is for many, many months, the data, things like that. It has been something that like we've adjusted the way that we use it. You know what I mean? And like sometimes what will happen is like we'll use something and we kind of get used to using it in a certain way. And again, like there's an update or there's a feature like we didn't pay attention to. And so I want you guys to understand, like, that's kind of the motivation for us as well, as bringing in people into this community because we have the community and the power to do so. And, continually featuring this product and showing you how you can utilize it, right? Like, there are going to be some people who will sit there and say, I love this, that, and the third about Privy, right? And don't get me wrong, like in certain circumstances, I'm 1,000% there for that. Like I went over some of those features that I think are absolutely incredible. Obviously, yeah, we have multiple tools for a multitude of reasons. We are nationwide, we are volume. We do need to be able to access information and tools to make sure that we're, safeguarding that bottom line. We're safeguarding the comps, we're safeguarding the underwriting. And yeah, sometimes like we have to verify that information even outside of one of our tools. And that's just is what it is. Now, like for me, I'll go into like one of the things that I am obsessed about with this product. And it's not contradicting necessarily what I've said previously, but I want to show you guys exactly what I mean. All right, so here I am. I'm logged in, and I'm just going to, I'm not sure if Leonard is on here, and hopefully Leonard's okay with this. But hi, crispy bacon. I just realized that was a bacon emoji. Oh, Lord. I hope you guys can appreciate my giggles and my ADHD moments because I'm just going to be me. Anyhow, I want you guys to understand just a few things, and hopefully it begins to make sense for you. I know that not everybody is going to be doing the exact same amount of volume or have the same extremely diverse amount of markets that we will have. So for me, I don't want to like go over the top and showing you guys this tool, but I want to show you some of my favorite features of this tool, right? And one of those features happens to be comping land. Comping land nationwide, like this is always going to be where I go, okay? It is a big deal. We get a lot of properties that might be on, it might be a mobile home that's really not worth a whole lot, but the land might be worth something. So sometimes we just comp the land, even when it does have a home on it, right? Maybe it's a tear down. Maybe we comp the land for that reason. Maybe it's a really good land deal, and we have to look at multiple different ways that, you know, a buyer might exit, right? You know, it might be a builder, it might be, you know, all kinds of different things, right? And so it might be commercial, turning something into commercial, rezoning it, et cetera, et cetera. We've run into all sorts of things, and land deals can get really crazy. And so for us, it is so incredibly crucial to have a tool that can showcase and that you can get data that's accurate on land comps. And even if for none of the other reasons that I have always loved Propstream, even if for none of those, like that would be one reason that I would always keep this tool, right? And so just to give you a really quick idea of what I mean by that, right? You know, some of these facts and features are going to be in others' tools as well. But I will give you guys just these examples. I really love the way that this is laid out, first and foremost. You have a summary up here, and I think that that's pretty stinking clutch, right? But the property details, like it's just laid out very nicely for me. And maybe it's just because I'm entirely used to it, but I love the way that Propstream navigates, right? And I love like that cash sale moment, like that button. I love the MLS details of this. And for example, this was sent into us for a JV, and our response to this was the asking price is market value for the land. And I don't think that this is going to be able to be a wholesale deal, right? Lo and behold, this is on the market now at that asking price for 12 days, right? But when we go to the comps here and you go to the property type, you can just, I mean, you can search so much in here. And I just think that that is so incredible. Now, a lot of this I don't necessarily use, to be honest with you, but that's just because like we're not into a lot of these things. And we tend to get single family or land or mobile homes, you know, smaller multifamily, commercial, things like that. It's just another thing that I love about this. These are the most used. And then I would say plus vacant land and mobile homes are the ones that I use the most. If you go into vacant land and, you know, it can be residential vacant land is normally what I would select, but the vacant land general is like another thing. And you can see like there's a lot of options here. Now, one of the things sometimes in like cities you have to be careful of is when you see this happening, right? That means they've already put a house on it. And when it was recorded, it just hasn't been, the public record hasn't been updated yet to have been recorded from vacant land to single family. Okay. You guys got to understand that like when they pull this information from multiple sources, it's like public record. It might be the MLS. And then a lot of times like, hey, certain kinds of land aren't sold on the MLS, right? It's another reason I brought up a couple weeks ago that sometimes like it's harder to get rental numbers because a lot of times it doesn't end up on the MLS. And so there's public record stuff, and you've got to figure out like, okay, doing this nationwide, pulling it from multiple sources. Yeah, like it's a lot of data being ported in to come up with this. And when you pull from public records and it isn't updated accurately you have to just like understand when one of these things is not like the other. Like, yeah, the actual vacant land at this size is in this price point range, right? It's not going to be the 240 something $1,000. That's after a property is built on it, right? And so like when they had sent this in, they had been saying, this was sold and a property was built next to it, and that property was sold at $321,000 for a new construction. We have no idea what that property sold for, right? So you can go into that property, or we have no idea also what the build out was on that property, right? Because the land in and of itself sold for $20,000, but it was also in 2021. But that land value hasn't appreciated. And so that was one of the things that I was trying to explain to the JV inquiry, is that, like, yeah, the property was built and constructed. But regardless, running it in 2021's numbers for the price point that a builder is going to want to buy at, materials are more expensive now, this, that, and the other, all these other things, that might have been, like an owner occupant getting a house built on there. We aren't sure, but even their purchase price of that lot supports that $20,000 mark, right? Now you can keep digging into this, and to me, this one was fairly simple as far as the comps went. Okay, so I don't get into comping land too much, like, publicly. It can be a little bit more complicated because of that exit strategy point. So what I would typically do in this scenario is, like, really understand that, okay, the vacant land within half of a mile of our subject property, the same size lot, right? Like, you're going to unselect this. I'm probably going to leave the first couple off because they seem to be outliers. Select like 6 or so of them, whatever, 10. It's pretty consistent data here, right, guys? Like, it's pretty consistently telling you that this property, once you look into all these, is going to sell at these price points, no matter what, for these lots. Now, they might be building really good houses on there and selling them from everywhere. The highest price one that sold was $40,000. So that, again, is an outlier. The lowest price was $1,000. It was a $2,000 one. Also, I wouldn't select these that are selling at like above 25, right? Because this property is going to list and sell as the vacant land somewhere right around that mark. And you've got to understand that, like, these just weren't recorded right, but you could probably build a 215 to a 387 property home on this. And that's where you can expect buyers in this market to want to purchase that new construction single family home on, right? And you can go ahead and you can dig into this and you can figure out, what those homes were constructed at, whether 3, 1,400 square foot, or some of them were bigger, smaller, whatever. But that data is probably going to be pretty consistent as well. And realistically speaking, this information right here, you have a really good comps for your subject property, which is a vacant lot, right? So, this is something that, yes, this is an easier vacant land comp to comp. This is something that I wanted to show, to our potential JV partner in this scenario, exactly how we came up with the fact that that is the numbers, just utilizing Propstream, right? Comping this on Propstream, it was fairly quick to determine that this was the value of this existing property. Now, if you're going to wholesale this property, then you have to look at land. One of the most important things that you can look at is these days on market, because even in where you have sufficient comps, you have a multitude of sufficient comps in this example. Land tends to have high days on market. And so where a lot of people screw up is they will not take into account that they're trying to put it on a 3-4 week contract for vacant land, and they're trying to lock it up at market value and then add a wholesale fee And they're not realizing like this isn't a property that would move on the MLS that quickly at that price point. A lot of these inner city vacant lots, in my experience, they do tend to want market value, because they do come in like these lower price points. And this is where builders want to purchase at so that they can profit. It's a lot to build a house, and I completely understand. But it's not as simple as just locking it up at market value and then thinking that thing is going to wholesale or move. You have to be able to find, this lot that's like they want to just get rid of it for 2,000, add a couple thousand on yourself and move it quickly to a buyer, because that buyer can get it so much cheaper than they could buy it on the MLS. And so that's why like a lot of these deals, like people want to ask us why like we're not extremely interested in JVing them. When it comes to land for us, like we will tend to get into like a very different style of property, right? One where we can add an extreme amount of value. A really good friend of ours and a scholar of the titanium university products, I guess, historically, like our boot camps, realistically, they haven't come to the university. But Anthony Pappas, he's based out of Phoenix, Arizona, and he's fantastic. And I just want to give a shout out to him. He does a lot of really creative stuff historically with land and commercial areas and rezoning. And I love, 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 love some of that knowledge and experience that he has. Like that is actually a lot higher than, what we have. Like that's what he was solely focused on. He was very niche on it for, quite some time. And I mean, to tell you, like he is a really valuable member of our community. So give him a shout out. I am so blessed to be able to learn every day from the people in this community and their experiences. And that's what we always want to like continue to put out there. Like this is the community, and like we are a part of the community. We're not just like leaders of the community. You know what I mean? So all of that to say, like he gets some deals, and those are kind of like the kind of deals like at his caliber that we're more interested in when it comes to land. Either that or it's like larger pieces of land, different kinds of use, things like that. That's typically what we end up dealing with when we get into land deals ourselves, because that's really where you can add a lot of value to it. A lot of these deals like this, people don't understand why like they're not extremely lucrative for us until we can start to see like, hey, there's a better use, a better exit strategy for this. A lot of these deals, like we don't showcase them because we don't do just a whole lot of them. They tend to take a lot of work, and realistically the time frame on them can be so extremely high to get them moved that it's not necessarily a good situation for us, for the seller. And that's what we're always aiming for, like that the numbers and the experience work from start to finish for everybody that's a part of the process. And back when we would try to get a lot of these deals to move at one point in time and focus a little bit more on it, it's like we're doing a lot of work for a long time for a very, very, very small spread to be able to help the seller, etc. Whereas like, we could have, they could have just been in a better situation, and it could have been a better use of our time. Now, with that being said, we have run into situations where a seller, we've listed it here locally, or we did wholesale a property, but they're going to tend to have like a higher market value than like $10,000 to $20,000 for the most part. And that's kind of where it's like, they're like, well, you know, if I list this and it has really high days on market, I'm willing to take a lower price point on it to move it fast if you'll move it for us. That's typically when we'll still get into this. But I want you guys to understand, like, those are the scenarios in which, like, we'll sit there and list it. So that's just one of my very, very, very favorite things about Propstream. Titanium machines. Joshua Jones, where have you been? Propstream's been back for a while. They just took a very small sabbatical. Facebook user, that is entirely plausible that we will. You can send the entire information in to jv@titanium.investments. And at that point, we will review all of the information or kind of tell you what we need in order to be able to assess the value of that property and see if it's like a good fit for us. There we go. Oh my goodness. If you guys hear any background noise, which I don't think you will. However, Titus is in here with me, so don't think I have some weird person lurking in the corner of the room. Hi, Hazel. Good to see you. So glad you could join us today from Puerto Rico. Some of my favorite humans are from Puerto Rico. Okay. Now, I'm going to go ahead at this point. I think if I do this, y'all will have to bear with me. There he is. Okay. So, our very special guest, Burton, has just popped on. And so I'm going to bring him on. And before I go through any other features, I kind of give him the update because I don't know if he's gotten it. I don't even know what happened still. But I've gone through like about 20 or so, 25 minutes of showing you guys some things that I love about Propstream. But let's hear from, let's go ahead and add him in, the master himself. I think you're muted still.
Can you hear me now?
Now I can hear you.
Hey, what's going on? Sorry
hey,
for the technical issues on my end, but yeah, I appreciate you having me.
No worries. We're just really excited that you take the time to come into our community and showcase Propstream. You did miss my incredible intro, though, about how I was so excited for today to finally have the opportunity to do this live with my very first love, Propstream. I have been such an advocate for Propstream for forever and ever. Amen.
I know you have. As a matter of fact, correct me if I'm wrong, but they literally call you the comp queen, and I agree to that. Like, I've seen you comp with our application, and you know your stuff, like, literally. And so if you ever need an application to take my role, feel free to take it.
Oh, I don't know about that, buddy. I don't think I can fill those shoes, and I don't know if anybody can fill my shoes over here. So,
no, I don't think anybody could. I literally think no one can hold a candle to your capabilities when it comes to comping and Propstream.
Well, we're really, really excited to have you. I'll just give you a quick update while you're having a couple of technical issues there. I introduced, what I've loved about the product for so many years, and I really want to not just show how I comp with it, because I do have some things, historically showing in our community how I comp with Propstream. For me, one of my favorite features about Propstream and why I absolutely need this in my shoes is I went over, how to comp a land deal and utilizing this tool. But like, by and far, if I need anything comped with land, like, there's nowhere else for me to go to get the information that I need. And frankly, if it was that and that alone, that would be like a reason for us to have Propstream. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not that I don't have 100,000 other reasons in and of themselves. But as far as just a comp tool goes, you know, I was just showcasing some of Cassie's favorite features and showing, and I can pop this on, I think. I don't know.
Ooh.
Oh, there I go.
That looks pretty.
That is crazy. But really quickly, before I like take you away, I will go over, since I never discussed this with you, some of my quick favorite features aside from like land comps. This right here, baby. It's everything, because we have so many properties like where the tax record square footage is not accurate, and I don't want to filter through a bunch of like comps that aren't applicable. That is one of my favorite features of all time that Propstream offers, and comps, because it helps me comp stuff so much quicker. And as you know, like here, we teach people to comp while they're on the phone with the seller. And like, that is so clutch to me. Another thing is like the property details and sales details, mortgage and transaction history. Like those things are so entirely, I mean, there is nowhere else that I go, and I utilize those on every transaction. Every single transaction, everything I comp, every time I utilize those features. Okay. And I legitimately every day of my life log into Propstream.
Oh, wow.
I wish
we are so honored. Oh my God. That feels like my back. No, I kid you not. Like that was our whole intention of creating Propstream 18 years ago, was that we understood investors like yourselves, real estate professionals like yourself, are having to do this investigative research. Like that's not your job. Like, why is it that you have to spend hours, days at a time to just figure out a piece of information that's already out there? The whole idea is to how can we streamline the process of Cassidy solving their problem much quicker. And so I'm really happy that you see all of that coming together. And as a matter of fact, I said it last time when I was with RJ, you guys are like, for me, the pioneers of why transactions are much faster than it ever has been in the past. And I'm really honored that our tool may have played a vital role in that. So thank you so much for your kind words.
Well, I really, you know, we're really humble people. And I think it did, like when you said that, like it gave me like goosebumps. Like it's not because I don't think anybody could ever point that out to us and not give me goosebumps realistically. But, you know, we just, when we're doing this, it doesn't feel like that's what we're doing. We see a need and we do it, right? And we didn't realize like we were forging this path, and we're just, you know, I'm going to reference something because I'm rereading it, and like it's something that we give to a lot of our, you know, boot camp attendees, our scholars, and you know, the book Relentless, and I'm rereading it, right? We have an opportunity coming up where we may get to meet the author of that book. And so for me, I'm like, oh, I'm going to brush up. I'm going to reread it, right? And it's so crazy because like it doesn't even occur. Yes.
Tim Grover is such an awesome dude. Yeah. One of the greatest books. I 100% agree with that. Like if you are not reading this, this will motivate you. It'll make you think twice about what you've been doing.
Well, it's so crazy because as I'm rereading it, I'm listening to it right on Audible. Nice. It's like it makes me laugh because that's so RJ, that's so me, and like it's so crazy that, you know, like we didn't even think twice. Like we're just doing what's necessary to get where we're going. And so I'm laughing because I had that thought when you said that last week. And I'll be honest with you, Propstream has been a vital part of our journey. Like it truly has. And I'm not going to say like
sometimes people that make big changes in the world don't realize that they're doing it. And that's honestly my honest assessment between you two is that, you know, when I started with Propstream in 2013, this is what our product was. Like we literally had no intentions of going web-based. Skip tracing wasn't a thing. We didn't have half the records that we have. And deals were taking much longer, or the average time frame was like 2 weeks to get a deal done. And then, technology just boomed, right? We had DocuSign, we had, Propstream going web-based, and phone calls and text. Like, I honestly, you guys put it together perfectly. And now I'm seeing you guys close deals literally the same day, which is wild, because what used to take people weeks to have their problem solved, like, you're now solving that problem the same day. And I could only imagine being a homeowner with a lien on their property, or a divorce, or maybe a death in the family, and thinking things are going to take weeks to solve, when you guys are offering solutions right then and there. And that, to me, is what sends chills up my spine, because you're impacting the community right away, not 2 weeks later, not a month later, but immediately. And you guys are doing a damn good job at that. So keep it up.
Thank you. Well, I mean, a lot of it comes down to being able to have access to a lot of this technology. And I talked about this yesterday on the live that I did, because I was talking about, how to figure out where end buyers buy while you're on that acquisitions call, because it's such a vital part to us being able to do that one day. On that one, it doesn't have to be a one call close, but a lot of times it is for us. And that's because we have access to systems and tools that, or softwares that other people have created, or we have created, to simplify that process and be able to do that. And what was really now, we've only been doing this for like 10 years. Okay. And funny story. I did not realize Propstream had been around that long until somebody pointed it out to me on the live yesterday, because I will never forget. We were in California at a mastermind, and Paul was there. And that's the first time we had ever heard of Propstream.
Paul DePozo. What's up, Paul?
Dude, Paul is my buddy. And I love Paul. And he told us about Propstream, and I could swear at that time, and I was saying this earlier, like, at that time, I think the only thing that we knew about was Propelio, which is based here in Texas. And Propelio was just Texas then. Propelio went nationwide, and then they went back to just Texas. So we stopped utilizing Propelio. But even when we had when Propstream to us went beyond the West Coast, because when we first heard about it, we didn't have access to anything beyond the West Coast.
Oh, right? Yeah, that's a true point.
So it wasn't a product we could immediately sign up for. But then, like, I'm pretty sure Paul reached out to us, and he was like, hey, we're coming over to your neck of the woods. And we're like, crazy enough, we're starting to expand beyond just Texas. And so we do need this, right? And so it was just perfect timing for us and our business. And so for us, going beyond like our local markets or going beyond Texas, we couldn't have done that without Propstream.
I appreciate that. Yeah. And I'm a firm believer, every one of those products that you mentioned, Propelio, I mean, that's a great product in your market. And, I'm happy that they help you get to the point where you're now opening the doors to other markets. And again, honored that we were able to help you branch out into those other markets that you guys were interested in as well. But yeah, you know what? It seems like it was a match made in heaven almost. But honestly, I really think it was just you guys. You guys were, again, relentless in the efforts of how to get things done much quicker and seamlessly. And through your determination, both of you guys, here we are today, right? Again, I've been in this industry for 10 plus years now, and I look up to you guys as the pioneers of getting things done much quicker and much faster. And there's softwares like us, and shout out Robert Winsley with InvestorLift, things like that are getting things done much quicker, right? So, yeah. And the fact that you guys are educating others on how to use these systems and tools at the same level that you guys are using it, holy smokes. Like, I could only imagine what the future holds when it comes to real estate in the next few years now because of that.
Well, Lord help us on our mission, because
yes,
it is pure. It is what we feel called to do. And we get to do it with a lot of incredible people such as yourself. And so that is such a blessing for us.
Honored to be part of the journey.
To have, to be a part of it. So One of the things I did when I go through, hopefully, I think we had you, blocked off for an hour, right?
Yeah,
So
you
hopefully
have
you
me
have
for
a
some
little bit
time.
of time. One of the things I would love, and I said this at the beginning of the video, is I would absolutely love from your perspective, how you utilize this tool, because one of the things I did talk about as like a long time user of Propstream, I can sit here and I can point out like my favorite features. I can sit here and bust out comps like in under 5 minutes.
Yeah. Yes,
All
you
the
can.
time,
Yeah. I
probably.
know for sure you can.
Yeah, like I mean, I don't even understand. Like, I'm gonna start having people like record me and time me, because like when I teach it, it does take me a lot longer because I'm talking and explaining every little click of the button, right? And so, anyhow, you get so used to doing things in a certain way, and like one of the values of bringing you guys on monthly is not just to showcase like the features that PropStream offers, which obviously are beyond comps, even though that's the topic of today's discussion. It is also to show like how you use it, right? And like as I
Right.
explain this, like navigationally for me, like I will miss updates because I'm just so used to looking at what I'm used to looking at, right?
And we've
And,
been fast and furious with the updates in the last few weeks and months. So yeah, you probably
right.
missed the
Like,
one. And there was one that you missed when you were sharing your screen. We just added subdivision back in the comping area. So if you
what?
go back there, it's the very last area. It now says subdivision. You can type in the subdivision.
Hold
So
the
go comparables and nearby listings.
where?
Yeah, it's right there. The last filter, subdivisions. Yeah, we just because there
Wow.
was we did remove it. I'll be honest with you, it wasn't the smartest step on our end. And then we got our customer feedback. We're like, why are you removing that? And so we heard the cries. We brought it back in, and so now subdivision is back.
What? Oh my god. See what okay, I already explained to y'all, guys, I log into PropStream. Okay, I'm not saying I never take a day off. I'm being a little bit exaggerated. I log into PropStream minimally 6 days a week. Minimally 6 days a week. And if you can imagine, 5 of those days I'm in PropStream more than I'm in just about anything except for maybe my email. And that's not a joke. Um, it just is. It's my reality. I know this tool so well, and like this is exactly my point. I didn't even know down there.
Yeah, we've added
No
that,
lie.
and I think we just added some new mortgage features on Friday or filters as well, like being able to search. If you go to the search filter, actually on the main page, um, so hit the filter at the top and go to the mortgage info section, and it's on the right side, second down, mortgage recording date. We just added that. And the reason that's to us important is because we started seeing a rise in creative seller financing, like subject twos, for example. And so with this new recording date, you could do something like find me a loan type, which is just to the left of it, a VA loan that was originated between the years 2020 and 2022, right? So now we have a 2-year maturity on that or 4 years on that, and it's a VA loan. And so when you're in areas like a military area, this is areas where sub twos are really, really popular.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to do things like that. Another one was being able to find that adjustable rate mortgage that's exactly 5 years mature, right? And so that
Mm,
recording date is a good one to find that person who went from fixed to adjustable now. And that
yeah.
could be a reason to want to sell or take an offer. And so that was a new feature that was just added. And we have a few more coming along the way in the next few weeks.
I cannot wait to see them. Like it, guys. This is just such a vital, thinking
Yeah.
tool. Like
But I will say I'm honored on how your approach with comping a property is. And honestly, you kind of brought up like how I would go about it. One of the things that people forget when it comes to comping is that there is actually a conversation involved. It's not just pick up the phone and then give them a price and then send the contract. One of the things that I like to teach people about when it comes to comping properties is that use that data that we have
mm,
in your attention. As a matter of fact, I'm going to share something really quick, And
Yeah,
hopefully
share your screen.
this
I was like,
right
I don't know
here
if there's technical difficulties,
can
but let me
help.
share
There
because
we go. I just want to
yeah,
share this one pop-up. I don't know. Okay, so you've heard the word comps before, right? And we all understand what comps means. It means comparables, right? But I'm going to take it further and I'm going to break up each letter. And I hope you can understand where I'm coming from this. And this is something, again, I've seen Cassie, I've seen RJ do exactly what I'm going through right now. Okay. So break up comps into these acronyms. C stands for condition. And that's why we have property details. Because imagine in the past, before Propstream, before all this technology, you guys were literally asking homeowners how many bedrooms and bathrooms and what year the property was built in.
yep.
Today, you don't have to ask that question. Today, you can look at the year built on the property and say, hey, John, I see your house was built in 1970. Have you done the roof at all in the last 50 years? Right. So that's how you can use our data. Hey, Samantha, I see you guys are sharing one bathroom. Tell me a little bit more about how that's working out for you guys. Right. So use the data to understand the condition, because by asking these certain questions like, hey, your house is 50 years old, tell me more about the foundation, tell me more about the windows, the ceiling, the roof, etc., you now can dictate whether that property is at 100% market value or it's at 70% because of its current condition, right? So start with the letter C, understand the condition of that property, use our data. O comes next. Now, sometimes our users or the preference will aim for O first, and that's understanding the pain point or the obstacle, right? So before we even get to the condition, I see people sometimes make that the priority. So either or, if you want to switch around, have fun, but you still have to understand the condition, and then you have to understand what those obstacles are. Like, why did they even call you back? Right? Sometimes it's data driven. Like you can go in Propstream and see, oh, they failed on the MLS 2 months ago. Now they need a cash offer, right? Or there's a tax lien and it's 2 years old, and this is the last year to solve it before it goes into a foreclosure sale, right? So, got to understand the obstacle, and our data can provide that. Sometimes, though, and I'll be honest with you, sometimes the obstacles is not even data driven. Sometimes the obstacles, my mom is sick and I need to sell my house and get to a different country in the next 30 days, right? So when you're talking to a homeowner, remember, it doesn't go from hello to price and strategy. You don't skip C.O.M.P. Like, you need to make sure you understand that. So our data is designed to give you information on the condition of the property, to show you any potential obstacles that have been, recorded and identified through recording. Then it's the letter M. Because once I understand that your condition's not at 100%, because we got to do the roof, we got to do the kitchen, and I understand that you got to sell in 90 days because mom is sick and you got to leave the state. Well, I need to know if you have a mortgage now. Because if you have a mortgage, then that's going to dictate on what I can offer you. Because if your house could sell for 100,000, your mortgage is 90,000, we're going to have to do a different strategy for that. I can't give you a cash offer of 70% because that's less than your mortgage. So you got to understand condition, you got to understand the obstacles, the pain point, and then you have to understand the finances. Do you have a mortgage and what do you owe on that? And then you worry about the price. That's comping. So now you do what Cassie's doing. Now you look at, okay, now that I know that this house isn't at 100%, it's at 70%, and I know that there's a mortgage and I know you got to sell in 90 days, what can your house sell for? So then I go into the MLS or I use the public records to find these local sales that are similar in the same area and average out a value. Okay, based on the data, I see that your house could sell for $200,000. But because you haven't done the roof and it's sitting at maybe 80%, I'm willing to give you 80% of $200,000 minus fees, minus all the other stuff that we have to worry about, right? And then finally, your strategy. Now that I know the condition, now that I know the obstacles and how much time we have to work with you, and I know you have a mortgage with so-and-so lender with the balance of X, Y, and Z, and I know what your house can sell for, oh, this is the strategy I think we should implement on your property or on your situation. So this is something that I would highly recommend that you try to understand. Oh, looks like my camera just kind of screwed up.
Oh no.
Should be coming on. But this is something
Think I just added you back on, so it disconnected for a second, but we're good.
Yeah, so think of comps, guys, and again, you're going to need data to understand each and every one of those letters. And again, that's something I see RJ and Cassie do extremely well. They're not just picking up the phone and offering a price and getting people to sign a contract. They're actually taking the time to understand all these elements. What's your condition of the property? What pain are you going through? Do you have a mortgage or mortgages? And then the comping comes in, and then the strategy. Maybe it's a cash offer today, maybe it's a subject to, or maybe we can list your property at full price because you've done the renovations last month. So remember that, and hopefully our data can guide you on how to approach that next conversation you have with the homeowner.
Absolutely. And like, actually, it was so funny because I was just talking to RJ about this. Like, sometimes with, some of our service providers or vendors, or however you want to say this, softwares or people or whatever that we come onto lives with, I'm like so strategic because I need to have like an outline. I need to have, hey, what are the points I want to hit? Because otherwise I'll talk forever, or I will, I won't have like such a targeted, conversation. But for me, it was so funny because, certain topics, I don't even have to think about it before I go live, and today
Just
is
so natural.
one of those. And I was just talking to him. I was like, I think I'm going to go over all my favorite things about Propstream. And it's so funny because like one of those things, like that mortgage and transaction history, I will, and RJ never has said this line so much, not nearly as much as I have, like if the conversation leads to it, he'll look at it and he'll say it maybe. But way more often, like this has been something I've been doing for years where, I will ask a seller, I'm like, hey, is your, mortgage balance about this much? I talk to them about the liens on their properties and, like, hey, is that lien been paid off? I just want to make sure when we open up title that it is recorded, or that we make sure that we request for it if it isn't on public record. I tell them that I have access to information that I can pull from different sources that are public record. But, these are things that, I use it as a multiple strategy tool, right? One of those things is that I'm establishing with them, like, part of my process is I have to go through and clear things that they aren't going to need to worry or think about, right?
Right.
And
Absolutely.
the other part is that I am the expert in this field, and I am going to take that expertise and I'm going to, like, we utilize the fact that we are masters of our craft as our rapport with the way that we do things on seller calls. So for us, it isn't just, and we teach that. So it isn't just for us, like the fact that we have honed our skills so much so by comping God knows how many hundreds of thousands of properties in our career, in our business history, or whatever you want to call that. But it's about the fact that, like, we have access to that information, and that establishes us as the expert. That establishes the best rapport building that you can build. And it is, having access to that is a huge part of our process. It is a huge part of why we are able to close deals, why we are able to go nationwide, why we are able to do this, anywhere in the United States, frankly. And having that mortgage and transaction history, like, I will never forget, like, when that came out, RJ was like, you don't need that unless it's like a creative deal or something like that, and I'm like, no, bro, like you do, because you're talking to the seller about their pain points. You're talking to the seller about their situation, and every one of those is unique. I always say, like, every property is different. Every seller's situation is different. Or the combination of both is definitely different. And a lot of them have similarities. And as Nick likes to say, like, hey, these are guardrails. Like, there's no two that are the same. Like, properties in here, man. And like, I feel like, no two have been 100. Every ingredient is just the same, like, so.
Yeah, I think the important part there, what you're saying is, the fact that you're using the data to be, like you said, be the expert. Because let's face it, right? Real estate's biggest transaction anybody's going to do in the United States.
Yep.
And a homeowner has to ultimately trust you, the real estate professional, to sell their property. So I'm going to be honest with you. If you're calling and you're going, how many bedrooms do you have? And do you have a mortgage? do you think they're going to be comfortable with the fact that you can potentially solve their problem? If I was a homeowner and you're asking me about bedrooms and bathrooms in 2024, and if I have a mortgage in 2024, sorry, I'm going to talk to RJ and Cassidy who have done their homework. And when they're calling me, they're asking me about my lender, they're asking me about the lien that they see, and they're asking me about why the property didn't sell in the market in August of last year. That's the
Yeah.
person I'm going to go with, because that's a
Yeah.
person that's invested in my situation, and
Yep.
I feel more confident in them. So I like, to me, that's really really something I want to highlight, is that you're utilizing our data in a sense that, hey, I am a credible professional. I'm not someone who doesn't know about your property and just wants to sell a property. I'm someone who's fully invested in your situation, and here's what I can do to salvage it. That I think is very very important, and I think for anybody that's listening and watching this, if you don't treat the data that way, if you're not, for lack of a better word, if you're not a lawyer with our data, if you're not trying to show evidence and to show the homeowner, who's the jury in this case, how you can solve their problem by providing evidence, then what are you doing? Like, I hate to say it that way, but really, what are you doing? Are you there for yourself, or are you there for the homeowner? Because if you're like Cassidy and RJ, who know everything about that property, everything about their mortgage, their equity, and their situation, they're more for the homeowner than for themselves. And this is why it makes it so natural for you guys to close deals, is because you're instantly at the level of the homeowner. You know their pain, you know their situation, and you can talk to them eye to eye, right? Imagine imagine being a homeowner who has a bankruptcy, and 30 people are calling you asking about the same thing. Hey, do you have something on your house I should know about? Yes, I have a bankruptcy. You should know about that, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you get the phone call from RJ and Cass, and they're like, hey, I hear you, I'm here to help, and tell me a little bit more about this bankruptcy that I'm seeing on the property. How can we help you with that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, and
That's the important part.
it's so crazy too, because like it's also how you speak things. So like a lot of times, and like I talk about this all the time, because like I run into this where tax records is pulling, an 1,100 square foot property, but my seller entered that their property was 1,600 square feet, right? So even the way that you approach situations like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I talk about how that helps me comp so much faster. But realistically, I do sit there and I say, well, I show that you entered that this was a 1,600 square foot property. When I pull it up, I'm showing that it's 1,100. Did you have an addition to this property? Did you have
Yep.
explain what that addition is? I need to know how many bedrooms and bathrooms it's pulling. So even when I don't know, or like I'm confirming with the seller, I will literally say, I just want to confirm this is a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom, 978 square foot property, and you've owned it for about this long. Is that mortgage paid off, or is this mortgage balance roughly correct? Whatever. Like I say it as a matter of fact, and like if they come back with and it's just a very quick part of the conversation,
Right.
and nearly 90, it's got to be above 90% of the time, what that seller comes back and says when I'm just going through like, hey, I'm going to verify a few quick pieces of information. And like I treat liens and bankruptcies and like sticking like pain points for sellers like that as well. And
Yeah.
very much the same. I go through them very quickly, and I just make sure, like, is this a problem for you? Is it not a problem for you? Is this information accurate? Is it not accurate? Okay, well, let's get into the numbers, right? And the reason I do that is because for me, it's just their response is almost always like, wow, you really know your stuff.
That's
I
the
just entered
important.
this.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That to me is the most important part. Because if I was a homeowner, that's someone I would lean on. I'd be like,
Yep.
dude, you've done your homework on my situation, and I feel comfortable. I don't know who you are, but the fact that you took your time to do that research on my situation means you actually care about what I'm going through. Right.
Yep.
So yeah,
And
that,
like a
yeah.
lot of people, it's so funny because they ask us, like, this is an obstacle for a lot of people like in our community, that they're stuck to like, hey, I do stuff in my market, and they'll be like, well, how do you overcome the fact that you're in Fort Worth, Texas, and you're talking to a seller in Indiana? And it's like, I don't have to overcome it. I've established myself as an expert, as a person who does this. And how do I do that? Well, I do that by knowing my information, like knowing my data. and having access to that data. And so it's so crazy to me, like when there's people that are like, well, even look, I'm trying really hard not to get out of just comping in this conversation because it's so much more than comping.
Yeah.
But realistically speaking, like even if it was just the comp tool alone, it's not just the comp tool. It's like an information source of it's like a wealth of knowledge right there. And it establishes you, and like people are like, I can't believe, like I've heard people get on the phones and like people that do a good amount of business, and they're like, yeah, I've got an office in that city. They don't got an office in that city. You know what I mean? Like, why are you lying? Like,
It's
and then
don't
they
lie.
start
Yeah,
questioning
I'm
me,
totally
like,
against that.
I'm located in Fort Worth, Texas. I move deals all over the country. Like, they're like, I can't believe you guys are just so fearless. And it's like, we're not fearless. We're just telling them.
Yeah, and I think that's the most important part. Like there is this misconception that comping is just getting how to get a price on a property. And again, I'm not saying that isn't part of it. But it's just one of many elements, right? Comping is doing the research on that property, right?
Yep.
Understanding the pain point, understanding the mortgage. Again, you saw the acronyms. That to me is what comping is, and that's why I'm like really proud of what you and RJ do, because you guys utilize all that data during the conversation. It's
Yeah.
not just, hey, I'm here to help and here's a price for you. That to me is, I think, one of the biggest misconceptions in our industry is that people think comping is just getting a price. And again, guys, it's more than that. Comping is understanding every element of that homeowner and that homeowner's property. And once you understand that, trust me, you'll understand what strategies you can implement to help them with their situation. So I'm very proud. And I know it's hard to just stick with comping, because what I'm hearing what you're saying is that, guys, like it's more than just getting that price. It's knowing the mortgage and knowing the mortgage balance and knowing their situation and all that. And once you know all of that, whether it's down the street or 1,000 miles in this direction, we're going to be able to solve that problem regardless. And that's what I really like about you
it's
guys.
so crazy. So like, since you brought that up, like, actually, let me remove that. Let me add this.
There you go.
So I want to show something really fast, because like even people like, I didn't always do this like right at the beginning, but it's so funny because we get so many people that send deals in, and if I'm running the numbers on them, you pull this up. I literally, and I did not always do this in this order anyways, like people will send deals in, and we just had this happen like 2 days ago, and he sent the deal in and the numbers technically worked if you're like just underwriting it, right? If you just comp it, like the ARV was correct, the rehab was correct, this, that, and the third. Unfortunately, it's like I go through the property details. I don't necessarily like study that first unless it's a place that has like a basement, or I'm like looking at the lot size really fast. But a lot of times I don't look at lot size until after I do this.
Right.
I just don't look at that necessarily first and foremost. I'll come right to like this, or if there's not a cash sale here, MLS details. And it's so crazy because boom, like our person who got a contract on the property on this example that I'm giving you didn't even know the property was listed.
Yeah. Ooh.
Didn't even know the property was listed. And like, legitimately, I always go there because I want to know when that last listing was. If the information is there, I'm going to look at it. And so oftentimes, like what people do is they'll lock up a property and they like aren't even recognizing the fact that like right there, all in one tool, I'm going boom, boom. Oh, this was listed in September of 2023, sat on the market at the same price that the seller is asking for 3 months and then got pulled. It didn't sell on the MLS. Like immediately, unless they have done something to the property since this got pulled off the MLS, it's not
right.
They're asking.
Not going to be where that price is. Yeah.
So as a buyer, like, and again, we teach where end buyers buy and how that's a part of your information during your acquisition. Like, automatically an end buyer is not going to buy that there at that price. And, there's not room for there to be like any sort of exit strategy at this price, even including they have listed it on the MLS. So they have to get more realistic about the price. And you've got to, and, you know, it's your job to inform them of like, for us, like where our numbers are. And we would love to be the solution for you. Here's why. And we back that with data. And I always call it like the burden of proof, right?
Yeah, that's
So
true.
as much as we're here to talk about comps, this is a part of comps, just like you said. And it's building that burden of proof, whether it's to your seller for your business. Like if I'm getting a hard money loan out, you can guarantee, like I'm an agent here in the state of Texas in DFW. And of course, I'm going to pull up the MLS if I'm comping something in DFW, right? But I'm not even joking with you guys. I a lot of times still pull up Propstream. And I want you to know it's for I'm not joking. It's not a lie. It's like it's a fact. It's because now in the MLS we've started to like have more of that mortgage and transaction history.
Yeah.
In the past, but Texas is a non-disclosure state, and we've and honest to God, like there are components of Propstream where it's like I would have to search for that old MLS number, or I'd have to click here and there, where I don't have to click in it in Propstream. It's right there on that page. So when I talk about navigationally, like on Propstream, like why I love it and how I love it so much, it's sometimes I describe it as like I'm comping like a realtor, like because I am a realtor. Like my experience in comping properties and how I got so fast and accurate on it is first and foremost, when we first started out as a business, one of the first role we ever hired for was a remote position, and we had people scouring Zillow and the MLS and we had them go through the data. And if there was, in essence, a property that was listed like for a high price per square foot or low price per square foot or high, you know what I'm saying? It was really that price per square foot. They were scouring it and going through that data and sifting out the ones that they would click on and see if it's a distressed property listed on the MLS, because that's how we were taught. So we were first taught to find deals on the MLS by scouring through data like that, sorting data like that, right? And so I then learned how to comp from there by utilizing the MLS of the realtor that we used, right? And a couple years into this, I did get my license. And then, so for me, coming in fast forward to where we have access to a comp tool like this, I'm sitting here and I'm like, I like to have all that information in a certain type of way, comfortably. And like, truly, it's so funny because I'm not, if I'm lying, I'm dying. I will pull up Propstream, even if I'm pulling up the MLS in the market that I am on. Not that I can show you the MLS, but like you have to click and like go into other screens and stuff like that, and pop-up screens, and like navigationally it's so much longer for me to have access to this information up front if I can have access to it. So for me, it's so funny because people ask all of the time, well, what do you do in a non-disclosure state, and like how do you comp? You know, I know that at some point in time, like it was a bit of an ordeal. And you know, I know like as people have so little understanding for like what it takes to have all of this information all across the country.
I'll tell you right now, it's pretty pricey. You should see our data bill every year. It's astronomical, but you know, the return is not just, you know, we are growing and, you know, we make revenue, but at the end of the day, it's who's using that data. Real estate professionals are solving problems. I get to sleep at night. And so I love that. So, but yeah, data is not easy to attain, especially MLS data on a nationwide level, it's pretty wild. And I will say, I'm really thankful you gave us that feedback, because we're starting to see the same thing. We're noticing an increase of interest in the real estate side of things. So we're starting to see a lot of realtors and real estate agents praise us for the amount of data that we have that their MLS doesn't have, which again for me is pretty cool. For me, I'm honored by that, because again, we have information that could potentially help a realtor as well. But I will say this: um, there's they just started, and I would say what kind of probably pivoted that move was probably COVID. I think when all the offices started shutting down and no one can go to a realtor's office anymore, I think that's what kind of forced them to look at tools like Propstream. Well, if no one's calling me anymore, how do I get in front of a homeowner? Gee, what are these guys doing? And they probably saw what you guys were doing, and then they're now mimicking. So um, that's so nice of you to say, because we're starting to hear the same comments across the board when it comes to the realtor and agent side of things.
Well, I mean, and it's so funny. Sorry, my dog's in the background if you hear
Oh, and
that.
my cat's interrupting our webinar too, so you're okay.
I'm like, is he about to make a bunch of noise? There's not some creepy person in the background here. It's just my dog. So one of the things too that's always funny, because I am an agent, is like so many agents just don't know the power of this tool. Like, I mean, I'm only bringing it up like in the facet that like I would utilize it for comps, but like agents' minds are blown when it's like, no, you can pull lists to market to for buyers.
Yeah.
No, you can pull lists to, like, you can utilize that as an agent. Like,
Yes.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or you
They're
can
just not.
find
I will say they're
motivated
not
sellers
used
for
to.
listings, not just like if you're an investor. Like, the knowledge is power.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And
I will say though that investors do have the upper hand in that sense, because outbound marketing is still somewhat foreign to to real estate agents. They're not used to cold calling. They're not used to targeted marketing. They're used to people just calling them and showing up in the office. And so you definitely want to make sure you understand that whole outbound marketing part. Like, how do I use the data to find that motivated seller? And yeah, you nailed it on the head. Again, I don't think that's going to go away. I do think agents are going to start shifting more to having that investor mindset. How can I do what these guys are doing? How do I get ahead of these homeowners before my competition gets that listing? And so, yeah, embrace it, guys. It's not gonna go anywhere. You definitely want to make sure you understand how to take full advantage of outbound marketing using data.
Absolutely. And again, it's just something that is such a powerful tool in your arsenal at every level. I mean, the price point is.
Yeah, well, I'll say this right now. In the agent space, when we tell them what our price is on a monthly basis, every single one is like, "Are you kidding me?" And the reason I say that is because they're used to paying much more for region area data. Like, I kid you not, their agents are like, "Wait, $99 for the whole nation?" I'm like, "Yeah." And I heard someone said, "I pay $600 for just my market," and I'm like, "Well, that's pretty rough." But again, I will say this: at the end of the day, just like Cassidy mentioned earlier, no two properties are the same, guys. You have to understand that. And the topic of comping is never a universal answer to it, because it really boils down on the situation that you're in. Like, there are people that are like, "Oh, I need to have MLS data to comp," and I get it. You need to find properties that are fully renovated so you can see what the house could potentially sell for, and then you work backwards from that number, right? That's why we have the MLS. There's also a reason why we have the public records, because you might come across a dilapidated property that's never going to be near the MLS values. So why show MLS values when I can just show the homeowner cash transactions in the market and tell them what cash buyers are willing to pay, right? Because cash buyers aren't going to pay full price for an MLS listing, right? So this is what you have to understand. Like, there's so much data that the data can be used in certain situations where, if you are, trying to get an ARV, use the MLS data. If you're trying to get an as is price, use our cash transactions, and if you're trying to promote the property to a buyer, show them both. Hey, buyer, this is what cash buyers pay properties for, and this is what they list it for later on. And now you can show them what the potential gross profit is. So I will say this: the data is manipulatable for a reason, and that's because we understand that no two situations are the same. So if you understand that our product can be a Swiss Army knife to the situation that you're in, whether it's comping or negotiating or building a list, then you're on the right track in terms of having the right mindset when using Propstream.
Dude, I really want to. I'm all dude. It's just who I am. I have to point out, like, that you literally said something there that, like, you need to say louder, because it's so funny to me. Like, I'm going to screen share so everybody has a visual. Again, let me do that. Let me extend. Okay, so what he just said, you guys, I get asked all of the time when I'm teaching, why don't you just put MLS? Did you hear what he just said? You can show your seller what cash buyers are paying for comparable properties in their market. I talk all the time about, I do not eliminate as is comps out of my comping. And like, so many people love to like try to have that comp method of like, well, the ARV is like the highest price property that I can justify within 10 miles of this subject property, not all these properties that are in this subdivision, right? Like, so many people just don't understand, like, the reason I can comp like I comp is because I have access to the data and I understand what the data means, and how to use it and how to apply it and how to explain it to sellers and buyers and alike. I will give one example on a deal that I actually ran through earlier today, in that, like, we pulled comps, we got the condition of the property, we looked at those comps, and we figured out where those cash buy, not just who the cash buyers were that flipped those houses, but where they purchased the property, by going into the details and going into the property history. The data is powerful, you guys, and how you utilize it to understand where the numbers need to be. It's like, these buyers are buying these at 50 and you want to market it out at 75. Like, your likelihood of that not turning into a price drop, stigmatizing the property for this buyer's pool, is likely a problem. Like, it's just like, people just don't want to, they want to take that faster route. And like, we are on a mission to make that faster route to be so compact with knowledge and power and expertise versus like just surface level, hey, the property could be worth this much and I locked it up at this much, that means it's a wholesale deal. Like that, and that comes down to that comping and underwriting and understanding this data. So there's,
I think you nailed it right on the head when comping is situational. I always tell people this, and sometimes comping can work against you. Like, if you're just used to the ARV method in comping, just finding properties that are renovated and then working backwards there. I've seen situations where taking that method has anchored locked a homeowner, because they'll be like, oh, okay, well, if those houses sold for 300,000, then that's what I want. No ifs, ands, or buts, right? So sometimes starting with the high price and working backwards can work against you, because now the homeowner knows what their house is worth and they're not going to take an offer less than that. So in that scenario, when you're dealing with someone with that type of characteristic or that type of mindset, probably not show them the ARV. Maybe just start with the cash transactions, because that's nowhere near the ARV, right?
Right.
So that's the thing that people have to understand, is that there's a reason why comping doesn't have a universal formula that everyone can use for every scenario. It's because every scenario is different. And so you have to understand when is the right time to use an ARV comp, and when is the right time to use an as is comp, and when is the right time to show a failed listing comp, right? If a homeowner is saying, oh, I want X amount for my property, see if there's a failed listing at that price that's similar. Then you can use that, right, as an example. And so at the end of the day, comping is really just educating the homeowner as to what price they're not going to get, right? If for lack of a better term, right? If you're going to show them ARV, just make sure, hey, these are prices you're not going to get because your kitchen doesn't look like these guys. Your bathroom doesn't look like their bathroom, right? So if you are going to take that ARV approach, just make sure you educate as to why they're not hitting that price point.
Well,
And
I
if you're
think
going to
also
do the other part, yeah, go ahead, Cassie.
it's a tool to also educate your buyers.
Yes, absolutely. And I see this all the time. I've seen people, what they'll do, they'll run 2 comp reports. They'll show the seller the as is reports. This is what cash buyers are willing to pay. And then when they're speaking to a cash buyer, they run the ARV comp. Mr. Cash Buyer, we have this contract. And if you renovate it just like these properties, this is what your average ARV is going to look like. So again, there's always a situation on the type of way to comp a property.
Well, it's not just that, but it's like I teach people this too. Like after repair value depends on repairs. And I'll say that and like it goes over people's heads so often. And it's like, look, if I can have the same potential profit and list lower and do less rehab on a property, that's always going to be my plan.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's always
and then actually that's we did introduce a category in our comping section called the flipper box, and works really well in disclosure states only because non-disclosures can't show us the price. But that flipper box will show you what buyers are paying for and then what they're listing it for within 2 years. Great data because now it shows you what the buyers are willing to pay out of pocket and then what their potential rehab cost is and what their listing price is or exit price.
Right.
But that's ultimately it. Like the bottom line at the end of the day is the data's there. It can be used in many different ways. And I think you really have to understand the situation that's at hand, right? Does the situation call for an ARV comp? Or is this property falling apart with holes in it and windows all busted that there's no sense showing an ARV comp? I might as well just show them what cash buyers are paying properties for in the same condition.
Yeah,
so once you understand that,
going back to like my first example in and of itself, you know, I'll just run through this really quick just because, you know, as we're wrapping up, this just really supports everything that we're saying going back to it. So I had actually pulled this property. It's a vacant lot, you know, and I had already filtered out residential vacant land here. And I was explaining how public records work and that like sometimes, you know, you'll see this like and you don't realize that the public records have not been updated to single family, like that sold as a single family. Correct. Right. And so I went through that and then I went through, you know, just how you sort your data, how you read your data. If something isn't adding up, then something's not right. Well, like on some of these you can already see like it might have not it might not have updated that, but it's updating that it has a house on it, right? So it's so funny because like I sorted through just like by the price amount, right? And I'm like, it's very clear if you are reading through data what your comps are right here. So the question of the person that had inquired about this deal was, but I don't understand why you're saying that 20,000 is market value, because the property next door sold for 300. Yeah, 321, right? And it's like, it doesn't even matter if you put the numbers on and they can make sense. This is where builders can buy these lots at this size all over off the MLS. They're not going to pay more than that because they can. And then you have to look at the days on market, right? Like you have to understand that like where the end buyer is going to buy, like this is what they're buying off the MLS. They're not going to buy yours for more if they can go, you know, this is market value. Like you're not adding value to this situation. You should get it listed on the MLS, right? And so like how this data is so powerful and, you know, I'm not picking on that person. Like I used it as an example to like, you know, show other people because they might have those same questions.
No, but I did like that you were able to see the outlier. That's the most important part, was that as you were in this area, you realized that there was just this one outlier. And that outlier was 10 times the value of everything else that was selling with a similar label, right? And this is a very valid point. I mean, counties sometimes don't correct their data. So it's still labeled vacant land when clearly there's beds and bathrooms and a price point of $300,000. And I like that you were able to identify that using our comp section that, whoa, hold on. this is an outlier.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, I don't think that is the right price for vacant land. It's a price for both the vacant land and the construction on top.
Right. I love that you say it's outliers. Thank you, Robert Blaine, you madman. Coffee budget. Coffee budget. So in essence, like for me, I always just like it's so I know I'm such a weirdo. It's probably why this stuff is like so I geek out on it is because I'm a total nerd, but
No,
I call it
that
one of these
hey,
things is not like the other. And like I just started singing a song, like singing that line during like the first 50. And so I've just since then always called it. It's like when you see that one of these things is not like the other, you know, that's more often than not like that isn't why what you get to pick and put down is, you know, what's going to work, you know, for you.
yeah,
Like
100%.
yeah, when you see those outliers or when you see something that isn't consistent in the data, you've got to figure out why. You know what I
Why
mean?
exactly?
That's how I used to. Hi, Titus.
I love that. You know, I always say, you know, everybody has some sort of addiction, and you know, I'm the type of guy who just I love real estate. Like real estate data is my addiction, and I love that you're the same way. And
Yes.
you know what? If you're not addicted to real estate, then is it for you? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
for me, like that, you got to go all in. Like you literally, it's you just got to dive in head first, and you have to understand the data. Don't be afraid of it. You know, embrace it. It's not going to go anywhere. It's probably going to get more complex, and technology is going to get even more comprehensive. So you have to understand that it's now time to start adapting to it. I still, to this very day, you know, talk to people that are just they don't want to deal with the technology. It's still kind of foreign and scary to them, but you know, it's
You
okay. It's okay to be
gotta
afraid
get
of something,
over
guys.
it. Yeah.
Yeah,
If
it's
you don't
okay.
like,
You know,
you have to have tools and you have to keep them sharp. Like, you cannot be intimidated, you know, by having to learn how to use technology. And I get it. You know, I happen to love it. I happen to be like, again, knowledge is power for me. Like, I love learning. I love access to the information. I love being able to piece it together and build a solution because of it. And without that, my building of my solution takes a lot longer, right? So
yeah,
I think that, you know, you get over that hump and you know like that's the whole point of doing a live like this is to help you
yeah,
get over that hump and understand how to utilize the tool and understand what it can help provide you and how it can help you focus. And going back, you know, to recap on your earlier point, um this takes away so much for us so that we can just focus on solving the problem. I don't
right.
have to worry about having access to the information that I need to solve a problem for someone anywhere in this country. I don't have to worry about that because
So true.
I have reliable tools. I keep them sharp. I have reliable processes. I keep them sharp. I constantly am learning every day. Like that is like such a core value for our company. Like we're
Yes.
always becoming better. Like we're addicted to, you know, knowledge because it is power. And, you know, we're not going to ever stop. And like I showed earlier, it's even easy for me to get in like the swing of things. And like I do this way all of the time. And like I didn't even realize you had the subdivision back, you know, like I miss things, right? And so it is important to take time to sharpen your tools. Otherwise,
Yes.
they become dull and they're not as useful. You know what I mean? So with that being said, is there anything else today that you want to highlight for our community? I know you're going to be back. I know you're going to be back.
Yeah.
But
No, just at the end of the day, thank you guys. Like again, I always look at real estate professionals, like every one of you guys that's watching and listening. To me, you guys are the first responders. Like, you guys of our industry, you know, like you guys are out there first solving these problems. And I see the videos of the smells that you guys have to endure, and the yelling and the cussing on the phone calls. Like, it sucks. I totally get it. But I want to thank you guys for not giving up. For those of you guys that are sticking with it to the very end, thank you. Again, you guys to me are the first responders. You're my heroes. I look up to you guys because my family was solved by a real estate professional many years ago. And so I think that's kind of a little circle as to why I do what I do for you guys. But don't give up, because I always say that the moment you give up, there's someone out there that is not going to get help because of that,
Yep.
So someone once told me this and it resonated with me. I liked how he said it, but you have an obligation to pick up that phone and call somebody, because there's someone out there that's waiting for your call and your call only. Because there's going to be other people that call that person, but it's you that they want to deal with. So pick up the phone. And if you have any questions regarding our product, if it's stopping you from picking up that phone, call us, because if we can help you understand that product, it's going to help you pick up that phone and solve that problem. And if you don't solve that problem, I'm going to tell you right now, there's probably a child that's going to have to relocate schools because you didn't get to solve that problem. Right. And so pick up the phone, solve the problems, and we're here to help you guys with that. Okay. So thank you for having me, Cassie, RJ. Love you guys. Thank you for the support. Looking forward to next session. But other than that, guys, we love your feedback. So tell us where we're doing great, where we're doing bad at. And then hopefully next month we can have some updates for you guys.
Love it. Thank you so much for coming in and pouring into our community. It means the world to us and them. And we look forward to seeing you next time.
See you guys soon. Take care.